Hello Saints and welcome to Sound Biblical Doctrine. Today's study is going to be about the Roman Catholic Church, i.e. the whore of Babylon. Now, just before I get started on this topic, I know that there are Christians, like in a lot of cults, that are caught up in the whore of Babylon, the Catholic Church system, and I'm not saying this to be nasty or cruel or whatever, but enough's enough, yeah? Enough's enough with the nonsense and the niceties. People always trying to speak in a kind of soft tone and be pleasant and not give people... How about just let's get to the truth? Let's just talk about the truth about the whore of Babylon, the Catholic Church, and let the cards lie where they lie. Because I hate the Catholic Church, but I know there's Christians within it, and I just don't see that being nice to them is the way to reach them. If people are offended by this, it's because you've got the spirit of Babylon inside of you. And I've got no qualms in saying I hate the Catholic Church. I hate everything it represents. It's an absolute disgrace. And, it's written the fear of God is to hate evil. And it's one of, if not the most disgusting and evil institution on the earth. So, and we're going to get into this. I'm not just going to say it and run. I'm going to say it and we're going to go through this study and we're going to look at Catholicism, Babylon, and all the absolute garbage that goes on. And if people are offended by my words, I want you to see the flip side of it and see all the victims, the people you just choose to ignore and not see their side of the story and just come at somebody because the words aren't nice. Okay, so I just want to get that out of the way. If I was in a position where I was in an institution like this, I'd want people to come after me in a strong manner and reprove me. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so with that being said, as you can see on the study number 8 here about Babylon, the Roman Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon. Okay, but how do we prove this? Now, because the Catholic Church was founded by Constantine in about 300 AD, many years after the Bible was written, the words Catholic and Catholicism are not written in the Bible. Even in Catholic Bibles, Catholicism, Catholic, they're not written in there. And because the scriptures do not plainly say that Catholicism is Babylon repackaged with a Christian veneer, we must study the Bible and what it says about the whore of Babylon to discern who she is. Okay, the Bible doesn't just say that Roman Catholicism is the whore of Babylon, because when the Bible was written, Catholicism wasn't around at the time. I know Catholics will dispute this, blah blah blah, and that's another study. They're always going to say that it was founded by Peter, no matter what you show them. But do your own research. The amalgamation of the Roman state with Christianity, quote unquote Christianity, this is when the Catholic Church was founded. But anyway, what we're going to look at today is, we can see in the scriptures tell us about the whore, Babylon the Great. We're going to look at what the scriptures say about her, and we're going to look at the evidence we have today and what we can see around about us, and we're just going to join the dots. Okay, so we're going to begin at Revelation 17, and we're going to see what distinguishing characteristics the whore has. And I've got 13 of them. They're the ones numbered in red, and there's a further 8 pieces of information around about the whore. Okay, so like I said, Revelation 17, the first bit of scripture we'll look at. As you can see here, the red numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then the blue numbers, they're further on, and again thereafter, and the pieces of information that are written. So I'd like to make this study short, but I don't feel it's the Lord's will that I do that. I know some studies are quite long, but if it's meant to reach one person and they stick with the study and read through it, then praise the Lord for that. But so I'm just going to read through this, and then we're going to look at individually each piece of information. So Revelation 17, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-coloured beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colour, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And that was Revelation 17, verses 1 to 18. So, like I said, as I've went through this, I've put numbers, some are in red, some are in blue. And what we're going to do is we're now going to look at those numbers, and we're going to expand upon them to give us an insight into the whore and who she is, and how we can discern that it is the Catholic Church. Okay, so the first piece of information that we're going to look at is she is a whore. Okay, that's the first bit of information we have here. I will show thee the judgment of the great whore. Okay, so the first thing is she's a whore. And how can the scriptures help us discern who that is? Well, all worship should be directed towards God. Whenever people turn away from worshipping God, their actions are described as whoredom. So let's have a look. Hosea 1:2. The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms, and the children of whoredoms. For the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. Let's get a second confirmation on that one. We're going to look at Numbers 14, verses 31 to 33. But your little ones, which you said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which ye have despised. But as for you, your carcasses, they shall fall in the wilderness, and your children shall wander in the wilderness 40 years, and bear your whoredoms, until your carcasses be wasted in the wilderness. This is, of course, speaking of Moses and the people of God in the wilderness, those that couldn't enter into the promised land because they had stopped worshipping the Lord and they'd followed idols and other gods. So then we have Hosea 4:12. This is the third confirmation. My people ask counsel at their stalks, and their staff declareth unto them, For the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err, and they have gone a whoring from under their God. Okay, so there's plenty of other scriptures you can look into on this, but part of the fruit of Babylon will be that she turns away worship from God. And in the case of the Catholic Church, this is done through her idolatry, traditions, and false doctrines. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these. As you're well aware, we're not meant to worship idols, as we see here in Leviticus 19:4. Turn ye not unto idols, nor make to yourselves molten gods. I am the Lord your God. That's Leviticus 19:4. Then we have Leviticus 26 verse 1. You shall make you no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. Okay, so we're not meant to have idols. We're not meant to have anything that we're meant to bow down and worship to. And here's just a few pictures we have. And this is some of the creepiest stuff you'll ever see. We have here the bodies of dead popes adorned in gold and all manner of means of nice fabric and clothes and that. And Catholics worship this garbage. They make pilgrimages and they go and they seek out these abominations and they offer prayers unto these dead bones. Utter garbage. Complete and utter. Nowhere it's nothing. It's completely unscriptural. They might have it in their traditions, but it's completely against the word of God. So that's the top two. I mean, unbelievers look at this and know it's wrong. Then we have the bottom two pictures. We have priests, bishops, whatever, and they're blessing, and it's just little toys. These silly little toy idols. They're thinking they're blessing them and making them holy. It's just utter garbage. It's idols. And then again we have this other picture here on the right. We have 5 or 6 people bowing down to worship Mary. Their idol statue Mary. Again, complete and utter garbage. Idol worship and completely against the scriptures. And, you know, one of these things should cause you to think twice about the Catholic Church. Even if you're... Look, most people that are Catholic are raised Catholic and then they go into this. You know, so this one thing alone should make you think, but there's a multitude. This is us just getting started, okay? So, like I said, we looked at idols there, and I mentioned about the Catechism and their false doctrines. Let's have a look at some of their false doctrines. We're not going to get into in detail about what they are, exposing them, but we're just going to list some of them. So their false doctrines include works-based salvation, purgatory, as we just looked at, idol worship, prayer to dead saints, confession, the Mass, priests, nuns, the Pope, last rites, the 7 sacraments, etc, etc, etc. It's all garbage. And the main place that they're getting all this from is the Catechism, because obviously it's not in the Bible. These things are not in the Word of God. So where are they getting them from? Well, the answer is the Catechism. That is the main place that they're getting their rotten teachings and dogmas. And think of the Catechism as like it's like this book that popes write into, whatever garbage they can get the multitudes to follow, and then it's almost like a baton in a relay race. That gets passed on to the next pope, the next whoever, the next saint, and they add in their 2 pence worth, and it's always growing. And it's just layer upon layer of bondage, garbage, poisonous teachings that the Catholic Church is able to get the flock to follow. You know, like you have the inner workings of the Catholic Church, i.e. the priests, nuns, pope, etc. And then you have the outer ring, which is just the lay people. And, you know, obviously the ones in the middle are rank rotten heretics. And the people on the outside, they're the ones that you come across in your everyday life. A lot of them are nice people, but they just not give up the Catholic garbage. You almost can't reach them. So we pray for them. We hope that the truth can reach them, but you know, it's tough. It's a tough one. The spirit of Babylon in them is strong, and it's not something that will just go away. Okay, so from a Bible believer's perspective, my observation is they've basically got everything wrong apart from their stance on abortion, divorce and remarriage, women ministers, and their stance on sodomy and sodomite marriage. However, most of these stances are just veneers and not actually what they practice at all. And the biggest hypocrites of the lot are the priests, nuns, basically the inner layers of the Catholic quote-unquote faith. So I have a bunch of links here to do with those 4 doctrines that I talked about, and we're just going to take a quick look at them here, and yeah, you can make up your own mind. Okay, so the first thing, Catholics are against abortion. We have here Pope Francis rejects abortion in the case of rape. It's never okay to hire an assassin to solve a problem. 100% agree, abortion is against the word of God. It's not God's will. God's the one that decides if people get pregnant or not. We shouldn't take it in our own hands and abort children. Kill babies in the womb. That's 100% wrong. And then we're not going to get into it, but the Pope's basically saying it's wrong. Yep, which is fine. But what's the reality within the Catholic Church? the reality within the Catholic Church is very different. The Pope says one thing, he's against it, that's what he's seen to be saying. Let's have a look at the fruit, let's have a look at reality within the Catholic Church. And by the way, this is a big study, and I've tried to kind of somewhat keep it condensed in as much as I can. You will never find as much evidence on abuse and garbage as you will about the Catholic Church. It's the nucleus of it, okay? So float your boat. This isn't like one incident. You can find as much as you want about this. It's out there everywhere for you to find, okay? So, like I said, the Pope saying he's against abortion. Let's have a look at the reality. We have here, abused nun reveals story of rape and forced abortions. So we have nuns getting raped by priests and then obviously getting pregnant, and then they have to abort the babies. This is a horrific story or testimony of what this woman that was a nun went through. Her name is Doris. She joined a covenant 2003, raped in 2008, and she was raped by a priest. She was 24 years old at the time, and he raped her, and then he would see her every day, and he would do his silly little rituals and stuff like that. And she's caught up in this, and she's wanting to serve God and go to this Catholic church, and then the priest raping her, so she's all over the shop. And the hardest thing for her to come to the conclusion is it's utter garbage. The Catholic Church is complete and utter garbage and not where God wants you to be. Take all your stuff, burn it and get out. Yeah, that's the problem, is it's that bad, but they can't comprehend that that's what they need to do. Yeah, so you can read through this, you can see what she went through. This is her testimony. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. We have here, this is in Scotland. This was back in 2012 when all the gay marriage stuff was going on about. And we have Cardinal Keith O'Brien takes gay round to the pulpits. So he's seemingly taking a stand against gay marriage. Good, you think, okay, good, they're on the side of righteousness. And you can go through this, blah, blah, blah. But then, what comes out a little bit later on, the next year, Cardinal Keith O'Brien admits and apologises for sexual conduct. And it was with men. So he's out in the pulpit, he's condemning same-sex marriage, but he's actually a sodomite. Okay? This is what you're dealing with. Next one. Women are the future of the Catholic Church. Anne Super leads renewed fight for equality. So, let's have a quick look. There was somewhere in this that the Catholic Church's official... Right, okay. The Roman Catholic Church does not allow female priests, and Pope Francis has ruled out any change to the centuries-old rule. However, in April he created a commission to examine the issue of female deacons, a rank below priests. So, essentially what's going to happen is, he's not going to say that he endorses it because he wants to keep people on side. He's going to run this little pilot scheme about them being deacons. He's obviously going to come to the conclusion that they're women and they can do works for the Lord, and we shouldn't be caught up by dogma, and he's going to give it the green light. But he's going to span it out over time. He's going to wait. He's not just going to say, I say this. He's going to let it be established, and they'll do their work, and a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. He's going to let the leaven get to the point where it's out of control, and then he's going to put some Latin veneer on it that it's alright. So anyway, he's against it, but you can see the seeds of it are starting. And even though he's against it, we have here Roman Catholic women priests. So this is like a website for Roman Catholic women priests, and some of them are in America, some of them are in Canada, South America, South Africa. So this has already started. They might not be given the green light from the Pope, but it's something that's going on within the church, and it's obviously something he's allowing to grow. If you started doing Bible studies and cross-examining the catechism, I'm sure you'd get chucked out the Catholic Church very quickly. But obviously this is something they want to grow and be established, so they're pretending not to look at it. Let's have a look at the next one. I was quite shocked at this one actually. Pope Francis' controversial step on communion for the divorced and remarried. So basically the Catholic Church's stance has always been that they're against divorce and remarriage, and let's have a quick look. The Pope's letter approved of the guidelines fronted by Argentine Bishop in Buenos Aires on how communion for divorced and remarried Catholics should be handled. The guidelines assert that in certain circumstances a person who is divorced and remarried and is living in an active sexual partnership might not be responsible or culpable for the mortal sin of adultery, particularly when a person judges that he would fall into a subsequent fault by damaging the children of the new union. So, again, just more wishy-washy stuff. There are no boundaries. Add the Catholic Church into the mix and everything's washable. There's no standards. So it says here, according to the Council of Trent, a marriage cannot be dissolved by a civil divorce. I'll go back. This caused confusion among some Catholics who saw that a statement is violating Canon 915 in the Code of Canon Law, which forbids anyone whose soul is in a state of mortal sin from receiving the Eucharist. That's the least of your worries, is getting your Eucharist if you're living in adultery, because the Eucharist isn't going to do anything to help you out. It's when you stand before God, that's what you should be worried about, not getting a little wafer from a paedophile priest. But anyway, yeah, you can see here they're against it, but already the seeds of the grey areas are creeping in. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. We'll have a look into it, and what about the kids and all that stuff? So, even though they're against it, their writings are against it. You can see that the double-mindedness, the waving is starting to come in. And not only that, the Catholics also have this thing called an annulment, which they don't call a divorce, but it's essentially like a divorce. It's unbelievable. I thought they had a standard whereby you said you can't get divorced and remarried, but they're not. They're not solid on anything other than being wrong. But an annulment is basically, I think it says it further along here, that the annulment process is by which a marriage is determined whether or not it is valid. It is not a Catholic divorce process. If it is found to be invalid, not meeting the requirements of a sacramental marriage, then an annulment would be granted. Where is it? The annulment process is often long, usually lasting about a year or longer. The people who make up the marriage tribunal for your diocese must perform extensive research in determining if annulment can be granted. So, we don't really get into too many examples in this page here. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's something you can look into yourself, but basically, if you end up in a situation where you get divorced, it's as if they're saying, well, actually, it was never an official marriage in the first place, and therefore you're free to be separated from it. We'll annul that marriage and basically cancel it and allow you to get remarried. Utter garbage. Again, absolute garbage. It's not as if these people are marrying flower pots or a doll and then someone's going, well, actually that marriage is annulled. They're getting married in an official marriage ceremony, and then the Catholic Church want people to be in a state of adultery apparently, and think that they can convince them that they can annul the marriage, which they can't. What God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. That's what the scriptures say. And they're saying they can annul it, and then you're free to get remarried. So, again, even the stances that you think they've taken, which seem legitimate, it's garbage, because it's leavened. They're not going to stick to anything righteous, especially those within the Catholic faith, the ones that make up the priesthood, etc. They're the worst. There'll be people on the outside, they're probably just lay Catholics. They might have some kind of conscience left, and there's things that they won't do based on old writings and their conscience, but you can see that it's been eroded, and it's not what they say and what they practice are not the same. Okay, so like I said, the first piece of information we're going to look at was that she's a whore, and she causes our people to commit whoredoms and to go away from worshipping God and following God's statutes and commandments. Again, this was all evidence that the practices of the Catholic Church are utter garbage. Okay, so number 2, let's quickly go back up. The great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Okay, so let's scroll back down again. We are given a clue about what this means by the angel in the vision, specifically in Revelation 17:15, where the angel says, "The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are people and multitudes and nations and tongues." So what this means is that the whore is worshipped by many people over many continents and in many languages. And if we take a look at the Catholic Church, you can see on Wikipedia, there are 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide, and they are found in all 7 continents, in every country, and therefore she will be worshipped in the languages spoken in these countries. And just as a kind of confirmation on that, this was the Catholic Church page on Wikipedia, 1.345 billion. You can read more into this, she's everywhere. And then this is Catholic Church by country, and you know, there's some places where on this map it seems like there's not many, but you know, there's basically every country in the world here. You can go through them all. Yep, and we get a list of the number of Catholics worldwide. And then there's other territories here, and you know, it's everywhere. So we can see here that Catholic Church fits the bill for the Whore of Babylon. As again, we'll just go over, she's found in 7 continents, in every country, and therefore she'll be worshipped in all the languages spoken in these countries. So again, she ticks the box there for number 2. Okay, so continuing on, we have here number 3, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. So let's have a look and see what proof we can establish that the Catholic Church is involved in fornicating with the kings. So we can see that she causes the kings and national figureheads to forsake the true God. She has turned their worship away from God and directed it towards herself and her plethora of idols. Okay, so Catholicism, as we could see before, was allowed to be in every country on the earth, so the kings aren't stopping it. The kings are allowing Catholicism to come into their country and to grow. And not only that, we can see here from these pictures that, and certainly the examples we're looking at here, the Catholic Church, the Pope here, has a very friendly relationship with the kings, with the rulers of the earth. Obviously, these two are women, they're not kings, and in the fullness of time I expect that to change. I think in Britain we'll have a king, and in Germany there'll be kings as in accordance with Revelation, but that's a kind of side note. What I'm saying is that the Catholic Church has a very friendly relationship with the rulers. However, the kind of worship that they engage in, we're not privy to, because all we're seeing is what the cameras get to see, what's out in the open, and there could be worship going on behind closed doors at these events, at these meetings. So they're obviously meeting up. We are not aware of what they get up to behind closed doors. So when we see this, the scriptures saying the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, are the scriptures telling us that this fornication is more than spiritual, more than allowing her to come into their lands and practice their wicked faith? Are the scriptures telling us that this fornication is more than the worship of false gods? Does this mean that the Catholic Church is involved in supplying men, women and children for the kings to fornicate with? Okay, so let's take a look at the evidence. Is the Catholic Church the mechanism, almost like the pimp service of providing people for those in power, if you follow what I mean? So let's have a look at the evidence. I've got here a bunch of links, and we're going to start in the UK. So the first one here, Prince Charles has deep regret over supporting convicted bishop. Let's have a quick look at that one. Here's Prince Charles with a bishop who he had no idea was a paedophile.
Between a prince and a bishop from 25 years ago that was being examined in detail today. Prince Charles and Peter Ball, a former bishop of Gloucester.
We now turn to the letter from His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales.
Prince Charles submitted a witness statement to the official inquiry into child abuse. He wrote today that he did not know and could not have known at the time that Ball was a sex offender.
Any message for the victims? And I'm always very, very, very sorry.
In 2015, Ball was jailed for abusing 18 men and boys. The Prince said to the inquiry that at no point did he make representations on Ball's behalf, but he did write of his sorrow that he was so badly misled.
It remains a source of deep
Right, whatever with the generic statement, distancing yourself from the paedophile priest. We're not having that. Right, so the next one we're going to look at. Former Prime Minister named in child sex abuse investigation. Let's take a look at the next video. Again, we're just going to roll the clip at the start.
5 British police forces are investigating former Prime Minister, the late Ted Heath, for possible child sexual abuse. Heath, who died in 2005, is accused of raping a 12-year-old boy in 1961. A Labour MP who has campaigned on sexual abuse by parliamentarians says it is something many have long suspected.
Well, I wasn't surprised that an investigation's taking place. I've been studying this subject, child sexual abuse, for nigh on 3-4 years now. And
right, so again, people in power abusing kids, but you know what we're not really seeing is who's supplying the kids. We've got people abusing kids in power. Who's supplying them? Okay, let's have a look at this. We're not really going to get into this one. This is pretty horrific, but it's a video about Jimmy Savile and the Ninth Circle. And Jimmy Savile, he seemed to be the kind of guy that was like a procurator of kids for those higher up, and we can see he was really good pals with the royal family, specifically Prince Charles. He's making him laugh, he's showing him something here, and we look further down, he's almost speaking to him like a mentor. You know, that's again, it's only the pictures that we can see, but Jimmy Savile, one of the worst paedophiles that we're aware of in Britain, and incidentally he was a papal knight. He was also knighted by the Queen. So I don't care what people say. You don't get to these levels and they're just ignorant of everything that you're getting up to. The popes don't become the popes if they're not adept at running an evil paedophile network. It's just, you know, you might don't be naive, don't be simple and just think everything's, you know, have some discernment when you're looking at these things. This is like the other side of the coin. These are like evil people, and this is what evil people do. Okay, so yeah, we can see, and in this video it kind of alludes to the fact that Savile was a procurator of kids to the elite, to the elite, those in power, you know, and you know, as we're going up the chain, you can see that there's royal family, specifically this is the UK we're looking at, and they're involved in child abuse. And as you can see, Jimmy Savile, the Catholic, the papal knight, he was involved. He was involved in supplying kids. Okay, and you know, so it really shouldn't come to as a surprise to us that Prince Andrew has an affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, who's also a human sex trafficker. I know we're not going to get into that side of things just now. Jeffrey Epstein, he's dead now, but this case is ongoing with Ghislaine Maxwell. We have Prince Andrew, Virginia Guthrie, Epstein taking the picture in the background. But yeah, it's just, I really just want to establish the fact that these people higher up, they're not good people, and they're involved in some real nefarious, disgusting activities. And I believe the Catholic Church plays an integral part in supplying kids to those higher up, not only for priests and nuns to abuse, but those higher up. And I believe that's what the scriptures are alluding to. But let's go further afield and see if we can see the same pattern. We have in the UK here, we have royalty linked with paedophiles, we've got prime ministers abusing kids, and we've got paedophiles linked to the royal family and the Catholic Church. And this paedophile in particular is supplying kids. Okay, so let's have a look here at Germany. Let's have a look. Pope's brother linked to new claims of child abuse by clergy. So this is from 2010. Fresh allegations emerge over Bavarian school where George Ratzinger led the choir for 30 years. So, like I said, these guys don't get into the positions of being a pope if he doesn't know how to run a network of paedophiles. And they earn their stripes, and then they work their way up. It's like gangsters. You know, they work their way up and they learn the levels, and then they get to the top, they oversee everything. And it's no surprise that his brother, who was leading a choir for 30 years, has abused loads of kids. Anyway, we're not going to get into numbers as to how many he's abused, but he's done it. You put these people in a position where there's children and isolation from responsible, God-fearing people, and the kids get abused. It's the same formula every single time with the Catholic Church. Every single time. Again, German nuns accused of enabling child sex abuse by priests. Let's have a look at this one. German nuns accused of enabling child sex abuse by priests. Nuns in the city of Spiger dragged children to be sexually abused by priests and politicians, a survivor told a German court. His explosive testimony is the latest abuse scandal to rock the German Catholic Church. Yep, so not only are the kids getting abused by the church, there's politicians involved. Okay, so it's not just the church that's abusing the kids. They're like a pimp, if you will, that's providing services to other people, obviously for money. And you know, Lord knows what other kind of favours that are going on. So I'm not going to get into this full article, but I just want you to see this is not isolated to one area. This is how they roll. Okay. Again, Berlin politicians, they knowingly sent children to live with paedophiles for decades, new report reveals. So let's have a quick look at that article. Yep, as I just said there, Berlin authorities orchestrated a crackpot scheme to place foster children into the care of known paedophiles, a new report says, dreamed up by an infamous pedestry advocate and supported by politicians. It only ended recently. I doubt it's ended at all. And yeah, so this is foster children. So if it's the same as like orphanages, foster children, children that do not have somebody looking out for them, the system is in place to abuse them. It's like they don't have some kind of layer of protection upon them, and this is when these people strike. You know, they it's disgusting, it's sick, it's sad, but they have a method for targeting children. It's really disgusting and sad. Okay, so but as we alluded to earlier, this is darkness that we're dealing with. So these people will do everything they can to cover up the rampant sexual abuse against children. Okay, so don't just take my word for it. Let's see from their own writings what they have to say about it. Child sex abuse in the Catholic Church is swept under the carpet, inquiry finds. Leader of church in England and Wales refusing to resign despite damning report. Because he's a paedophile, that's why. Pope Francis asked Cardinal Vincent Nichols, leader of the Catholic Church in England and Wales, to stay in his post despite a damning report that criticised his leadership, and concluded that the church repeatedly prioritised its reputation over the welfare of child sex abuse victims. Yeah, because he's knee deep in it as well. Obviously he's an important man to the Pope to continue raping and abusing kids, so he doesn't want him to resign. Just weather the storm, wait till the next bad news story comes out, people will forget about it, and then they do these things where it's like they'll say things like, it was like that guy, the sodomite guy, he had some oversights or something like that. They use these words to really trivialise their actions. Oh, it was unfortunate what had happened, you know, and completely downplay the horrific abuse that goes on. It's really disgusting. Okay, so that was one thing that's sweeping under the carpet. The next one, Catholic Church says they are not obligated to report child abuse. Catholic Church says they are not obligated to report child abuse. This is on February 10th, 2016. According to new guidelines by the Vatican, the victim is responsible to report the incident. So, once the victim has been abused, the Catholic Church are going to do nothing to shed the light upon this. If there's other priests, etc., are aware of it, they're not going to report it. yeah, they're really going to do nothing to facilitate the truth coming forward. And this is what you're dealing with, because they're evil. It's as simple as that. They are evil, they're of the devil, and of his lusts and of his works they will do. And like I said, we are only privy to the cases that make it to the light. This is a sample section of the fruit of what's going on with the Catholic Church. It's an absolute disgrace. And the scriptures tell us about this. John 3 verses 19 to 20. And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. Yeah, that's what these people are operating in darkness, and they do not want their deeds to come to the light. So one of the consequences of this is that in certain countries the abuse is still prevalent, but not as well documented or reported. So there are people that are actively trying to shut this down and stop it getting to the light, and we have to look at it and recognise that not all countries operate like Western countries, and in a lot of other countries suppression of news and information is a lot easier due to the system and the way they operate. So anyway, let's keep that in mind when we're looking at other countries with this kind of phenomena going on. Let's have a look at Russia. Moscow Patriarch to monitor Catholic orphanages. Let's have a quick look at that one there. The Russian Orthodox Church has decided that it will closely and constantly monitor the activities of Catholic social organisations, especially orphanages. The decision was taken at a meeting of a joint working group of problems between the Russian Orthodox and Catholic churches that was held in the city of Vladimir, east of Moscow. This was 2008, so quite a few years ago now. But my point is that we have the Orthodox Church being closely linked with the Catholic Church and with regards to orphanages. Okay, and you can join the dots on what's going on. When I look at the Russian Orthodox, to me they look just like the Catholic Church, with their garments, and I'm pretty sure the doctrines are quite well aligned with the Catholic Church. Obviously they don't have the Pope, but they're in a lot of layers of garbage, of bondage, of false doctrine and nonsense there as well. But that's like another stuff. My point is that we can see here that it says here in Russia that there are the exact number of children in Catholic orphanages, but according to some, the number is no more than 200 throughout the entire Russian Federation. I don't know about that. If that's 200 children or Catholic orphanages, but this is where the children will be vulnerable, okay? Those in orphanages, specifically if they're run by the Catholic Church. Again, sexual abuse and rape claims by children from Russian orphanages trigger a probe. Okay, so let's have a look at that article. This was 2018. Sexual abuse and rape claims by children from Russian orphanages triggers a probe. Sexual abuse that reportedly took place in an orphan boarding school sent shockwaves across Russia after its former residents described the horrors that happened there, claiming they had been raped by a visitor and staff. Okay, so you can see before we have the Catholic Church orphanages. I don't know exactly in Russia how it works, if it's state run, charity run, I don't know, but orphanages are where this is going on. And my point with this article was, it wasn't just the staff, there's visitors coming in. Okay, so just try and have this as, I know it's like a horrific topic, but we have centres where children are vulnerable, and they're kept vulnerable, and they're abused by those operating and working at that centre, but then there's also going to be other people coming in and abusing those kids. That's the dynamic that takes place. And very, very often the Catholic Church is the one that's looking after the kids, that's abusing them themselves, and also making them available to visitors, politicians, royalty, to abuse and do whatever they want with these kids. Okay, that's the dynamic I'm trying to drive across, and it exists everywhere. Okay, next article, stopping sexual abuse of children in Russia. Let's have a quick look at that one. One of the worst tragedies of post-Soviet Russia has been the increase in child abuse, particularly child prostitution, because the moral and ethical implications, the impact that sexual exploitation has on children's health and future development demands urgent attention, is a problem that shows no signs of abating. Okay, continuing on. Sexual abuse of children takes several forms. They are used in pornographic publications and films and exploited as prostitutes. They are also trafficked to other countries, particularly in the Middle East. Victims of child sexual abuse are often lured by the fake promise of being published in mainstream fashion magazines. Some victims believe that prostitution and contact with rich businessmen will allow them the kind of lifestyle they could not have otherwise. Russia is now one of the main producers of child pornography in the world, and it registers significant incidences of child prostitution and child trafficking for sexual purposes, according to the Russian National Consultation on the Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children. St. Petersburg and Northwest Russia report a high incidence of sex tourism, which is widely advertised on the internet as aimed at people from neighbouring Scandinavian countries. Child prostitution is the most common form of child exploitation in that region. Those who recruit children for sexual exploitation frequently target street children or children from dysfunctional families. This initiates a vicious circle of entrapment. As they become older, children end up in brothels. The recruiters prey on these children's needs and deceive them into a life of dependency. It's horrific, okay? But, yeah, really horrific topic. But there's a network in place for this, okay? It's not just chance that allows this to happen. There's a real network in place, and we have to understand that that network operates in darkness, so you can't so easily just point at it and say, that's it, that's their headquarters there, they run out of there, this is their traffic routes, etc. It's hidden in darkness, but it goes on, and we need to be aware that it's organised. And very often the Catholic Church is the main facilitator for this. Okay, continuing on. So in the pictures just further up, we looked at UK, Russia, Germany and Israel. I feel they're relevant going forward, but that's for another study. And these are the countries that we've looked at. However, interestingly, in Israel, there seems to be little in the way of material exposing Catholic child abuse. However, rather than it being the Catholics, it appears to be that the main culprits seem to be those within the ultra-Orthodox sect of Judaism. So let's take a quick look at that. This is a American Psychological Association. I was scared like never in my life. Children's perspective of non-familial sexual abuse within the Jewish ultra-Orthodox community in Israel. I'm not going to get into it. It's a journal, just to kind of bring your attention to the fact that it goes on. Next article. Tackling sexual abuse among ultra-Orthodox is especially difficult. Analysis. How his activities did not come to light sooner. So, the harrowing details of the allegations of rape and sexual assault against Zaka founder Yehuda Meshe Zahav have made horrifying reading in recent days. In a lengthy investigative piece in the Haaretz Daily, the testimony of 6 alleged victims detailed abuse conducted by Meshe Zahav going back decades, starting in the 80s. So again, this man, high in the Orthodox community, and he's involved in raping and abusing kids. Okay, so what's the point of that? Why did I mention that? Like I said, I couldn't find much information on Catholicism and children getting abused in Israel. It was more ultra-Orthodox. But this study we're looking at is the Whore of Babylon. And I just want you to have a little look at something here that I felt the Lord was showing me. And that is that the main text that the ultra-Orthodox study and live by is the Talmud, specifically the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, so just for confirmation on that, here we have the Talmud, Wikipedia. The term Talmud normally refers to the collection of writings, specifically in the Babylonian Talmud. Okay, so Babylon. Yeah, the Catholic Church is Babylon with a Christian veneer. It appears that the ultra-Orthodox are just in there without the veneer, but it's still Babylon. Okay, you know, these teachings were collected and written in Babylon. Okay, and we'll get more into that in another study, but not just now. There's too much to get into regarding Catholicism. But like I said, researching this, the Lord also brought these further articles to my attention. I just like I said, I feel it's important to mention these. Okay, so there's 3 articles. Jewish American paedophiles flee justice by coming to Israel. Let's have a look at that one. Jerusalem Post. Jewish Community Watch founder Meyer Sewell told CBS that the same thing that is going on in the Catholic Church is happening in our community. And what's happening is, many Jewish people have decided to use their right of return to build their lives in Israel. After all, the law is meant to offer anyone who is Jewish a legal way to come to Israel and become a part of the Jewish state. However, the law can also be used by Jewish American paedophiles to escape justice for their crimes, CBS reported on Wednesday. So, you've got the link here, you can read it if you want yourself. And the problem is Israel's allowing them to come in. So say somebody's a convicted, is Jewish, they're in America, they're a convicted sex offender, rather than facing justice, they flee to Israel, and Israel's not doing anything to extradite them back. Okay, that's the problem. Not that they're going, but they're seeking refuge there. And then again, further confirmation of that one here. Another case, this time it's in Australia. Why is an alleged child rapist still in Israel? Israel's failed to treat allegations of sexual child abuse seriously is taking a heavy toll on relations with Australia's Jewish community and bilateral relations with Canberra. So this was the case where this woman, Malka Leifer, was on sex abuse charges in Australia, went to Israel, and they're not extraditing her. This was an older article. And then here we have here, she did in the end get extradited, but she was again tied in with ultra-Orthodox, and they seem to be playing some kind of role in hindering her departure. Okay, so like I said, I was looking into this purely for Catholic reasons, and the Lord brought this to my attention, and we can see that many paedophiles of Jewish descent seek and gain sanctuary for their crimes in Israel, and for some reason extradition for their crimes is a rare occurrence, and if it happens it takes a long time. But to surmise, it's quite a long section, that one, we can see that in whatever country Babylon is based, horrific child sexual abuse is prevalent, and this abuse is very organised and used by those within power, and that includes politicians,